Hi, this is Melissa Briggs, and this is my presentation on cooperative discipline as a model for classroom management. Cooperative discipline was founded by Linda Albert, and some background about her is that she was really heavily influenced by Dreikers and Adlerian psychology, and a lot of that really was based on the premise of meeting students' needs and modeling their behavior. So you're going to see a lot of that throughout this presentation about how she really gets down to the core of what did the student need that resulted in the behavior, because students choose the way they behave, but they might not always respond out of what is directly in front of them so much as an unmet need, and that students also require a modeling of behavior in order for them to be successful in executing that model. A little bit more about Linda Albert. She is the author of several books on cooperative discipline since 1992 for both parents and educators. I think I saw that there are at least 5 different books that she had authored. She's also been a middle school teacher in a public school, a teacher specialist for behavior, a professor, and a counselor, as well as a column writer for a women's column. Some of the basic principles behind cooperative discipline include the main function being building classroom community through connection and confidence. That means that the class is getting to make the decisions. There's a class code of conduct that you form with your students, which helps them to have belonging and a place within the classroom community. It makes them partners in the classroom rather than just people who are subject to the teacher's way or the teacher's law and reign. It gets very much away from the traditional model of classrooms that we see with the authoritarian teacher who guides the students and says, you sit here and do this and I'm going to lecture. It definitely moves away from that idea and more onto the idea of classroom as community, and also really heavily promotes parents as partners within the classroom. So one of the things that was really prominent throughout Linda Albert's research was that misbehaviors are an opportunity to learn new behaviors. As I previously said, students will choose whatever behavior they have, but what's given from their behavior might not be a result of what you're doing in the classroom so much as an unmet need, another situation that's happened. And because these misbehaviors occur, we want to give an opportunity to model how we respond appropriately to whatever behavior that is that the student is experiencing. There are 3 C's that are the focus of the cooperative discipline model, which are capable, connected, and contributing. These are the 3 C's that should be modeled with and towards students, which focuses on positive, working towards growth, and so really seeing where a student is at and how we can continue to develop them character-wise and academically. Students should feel connected through the 5 A's, which is another part of Linda's model, through acceptance, appreciation, attention, affirmation, and affection. Those are the 5 A's that all individuals require in order to feel connected and a part of a group. And the last piece is contributing through class, school, and community. So I personally feel like this piece is really critical because it's great if the kids feel capable of doing their work. It's better if they feel connected, but it's best if they also have a role in which they contribute back, whether that's a classroom manager position, whether that's a way that they serve in the school or a way that they serve in their community, rather than just seeing it as, oh, this is a place where we go and this is a place where I feel safe. They should also have that contributing factor in order for them to become productive citizens in society outside of the classroom. Another thing to really consider with the cooperative discipline model is the behavioral antecedents and consequences. So there were 3 main categories that I drew from the research that I read that modeled or that went into how students responded and how they behaved. There was the need for belonging that students have. There's motivation. What is their motivating factor behind that behavior? And their relationships. How are their relationships with classmates? How are their relationships with parents, with other adults? And really with that need for belonging, like I said previously, it goes along with just needs in general that they need to meet in order to move forward. Just like in Maslow's research, If you've read about that, there's this hierarchy of needs that has to be met before academic pursuits can be made. So the educator's role in all of this is to stay calm and relaxed in responding to behaviors. This has been my mantra for this year, particularly just because it's my 4th year in education and I'm just really wanting to remain calm and remain relaxed and figure out, okay, where is this behavior coming from? And then focus on working with students on behavioral goals. So if you have a student that really struggles with blurting out, make a goal with that student and figure out, hey, what can we do to help you feel successful? For some kids, they just need a timer. They need something to fidget with. It's whatever you need to do to meet with that particular student. Now, that's not applicable necessarily with all students. Of course, you have your classroom management in the classroom that you've agreed with your class contract, as we said before with the basic principles. But some students might require additional support in order to be successful in maintaining that contract and in meeting the goals that you've set forth as a class. And also, it's very important to provide encouragement for your students, even if that's, you know what, good job on not tearing up your paper today. As silly as that might sound, at least you're finding something positive, because if the student struggles with behavior, chances are you're not the first person who's gotten on to them about it. You might be the 15th that day and you just not realize it. So providing that encouragement and really finding a way to segue that encouragement into continuing to model that behavior and into continuing that process for students to excel is really critical for them, because they need that. Of course, there are consequences that must happen at some point. It's very important that you make sure that these consequences fall in the following guidelines. They need to be reasonable. They need to be related to whatever the action was, the misbehavior. They need to be respectful. There is no circumstances or conditions under which students should feel shamed or embarrassed or publicly humiliated in any way, because that is an excellent way to destroy your classroom community. So we need to be sure that we're respecting students. Something that I tell my kids is that I'll respect your voice. I'm not going to talk over you. And in the same way, I ask that you would respect mine. And so we have that agreement as a class as far as what respect looks like. The consequences also need to be reliable. And by that, what I really mean and what I believe is meant by the research is that you need to follow through. It can't be a consequence that is so extreme that you can't follow through on it or guarantee, because the students will then see that as an opportunity to say, oh, well, I don't actually need to worry about this because she or he can't actually accomplish this consequence that they're saying. So there are different types of student misbehaviors we're going to address next. There are 4 main types that Linda addressed throughout her research, and both the type of behavior, the characteristics that go along with that, and how the teacher should respond. So the first one that we're going to look at is the revenge-seeking behavior. That comes through specific rude remarks, calling out a specific person. It's very much a direct act or attack that is made by a student. A lot of times you might see students destroying materials, stealing other people's things, going out of their way to antagonize another student because they feel that they have been offended by this other student, whether that's through an action, through a verb, or a phrase that they might say. And so they will want to seek that revenge to make them feel okay. Again, it's that unmet need of feeling belonging in a group or with a specific person or in a class. And so the teacher's response in this is that we should build rapport with students so that we're able to identify and able to connect with them whenever they do have this behavioral flare-up. For some students, it might be more often than others, but when you build rapport, you're able to start seeing when these things pop up so that you can head them off ahead of time. And it's very critical that you maintain a calm expression. Blowing up will only make the student continue to act out, and then they're going to be seeking their revenge on you because they feel that you have offended them. The next type of student is the attention-seeking student. So this one can be really typical in a classroom. It's the tapping of the pencil, excessive sounds, off-task behaviors, wandering around. The child is seeking your attention, and it's very, very critical that you use I messages with the student. I need you to sit down because blah, 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 or this is what I need from you, and really making it relational rather than so-and-so, why do you keep tapping your pencil? Stop that. You really need to approach it from the I message, which is going to leave the student open, rather than the you message, which shuts them down. Another great way to head this one off is through the use of proximity in the classroom. The next type of behavior is the power-seeking behavior. This is where the student might feel disempowered outside of school, and so when they arrive at school, they want to feel some sense of control or power over their lives. This type of behavior that we see, the characteristics include directly challenging the teacher, mumbling, complaining when they don't want to do things, a refusal to comply, a lot of kind of sass or sarcasm from the student. And it's important for the teacher to give that student options. Not that you're letting them have an excuse for what their behavior is, but by giving them that option, you're allowing them to have some sense of control and that power that they're really seeking, but in the guidelines and in the context that you are allowing within the classroom. It's also important to assign responsibilities. So this is where classroom managers is really helpful, because it gives that student, again, that sense of control, that sense of power over something when they might feel disempowered outside of school, or maybe in PE, or when they feel overwhelmed. So this gives them that opportunity to feel in control and safe in that way. The last of the types of behaviors is the avoidance of failure. This one is, I think, the most tricky for me because the characteristics are the student's withdrawn, they're lazy, they're avoiding work. So it's really important for the teacher to model task management, vary the instructional strategies for multiple learning styles. So if your child is maybe more kinesthetically learning, then you need to be sure you incorporate something that will allow that child to move to engage with the learning process. Not all children are able to auditorily learn different levels of content. So you need to vary the instructional strategies so that they feel that they can't fail. And then also making sure that failure is something that's okay in your classroom, so that students realize, oh, failing just means I have an opportunity to learn something new. So the classroom applications that I have found and that I think would be really useful as takeaways are documenting the antecedents of behavior to find a strategy and implement that strategy for a student. I found this research really helpful just as I'm thinking about different kids in my classroom, like, okay, this student needs to feel empowered. How am I empowering the student? This student is feeling upset and offended by another student. How am I making sure that they are getting their needs met? And then making the classroom a meaningful place. It needs to be centered as a community. It needs to have parents as partners. And you need to model behaviors and encourage students continuously so that they are allowed to and will continue to feel successful. Listed here are some of my references. If you would like to have more information, you can go ahead and message me about that. And then lastly, I wanted to close with a prompt of, have you found other strategies that suit various types of misbehaving personalities? And I kind of want to rephrase that. It's not necessarily a personality so much as it is a motivation for why they're misbehaving. And if so, what are they, or what do you think might also be worth trying if you have not yet been in a classroom? So that's all I've got for you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation, and I look forward to hearing more about your ideas on classroom management.